Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, when and where people can live in their cars.
You need some help, you need some assistance. There's a place for you because we have one goal: get you out of your car and into housing that makes sense.
San Diego's solution to create safe parking places for people who live in their vehicles. Plus, disposing nuclear waste at the shuttered San Onofre power plant. The latest push to get it off our shoreline quickly. And local students push for alternatives to formal discipline. Now the idea is gaining traction at the state capitol. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, April 16th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. The city of San Diego is opening its third safe parking lot for people who are homeless. Mayor Kevin Faulconer is pushing a law to ban people from living in their cars. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman explains why the mayor says it's needed.
Here in Mission Valley, right across from SDCCU Stadium, this old overflow parking lot will soon be a place where people who are homeless can park both cars and RVs overnight.
You need some help, you need some assistance. There's a place for you because we have one goal: get you out of your car and into housing that makes sense. We're also sending a strong message to those folks that just want to come live in their cars in neighborhoods. It's not going to be acceptable anymore.
San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer says people living in their vans is destroying quality of life, and people have a right to clean and safe neighborhoods. He's proposing a new ordinance that would prevent that.
It's not safe, it's not healthy, and it's not acceptable.
When you start using words like safety, then you got to put your money where your mouth is. You can't say that because if these people are unsafe, then that means they have to be, get rid of them, eliminate them, and that's not the case. They're exactly the opposite. They're mostly people who are down and out and who have a lot of problems and who can't get ahead and can't get a leg up or a step up.
Pam Fortenberry has been living out of her van for the last 5 years. Earlier this year, the city council repealed a law that banned people from living in their cars. A judge said that law was too vague. Fortenberry doesn't think the mayor needs to propose a new one.
If everybody gets all fired up and calls his office and says, hey, why'd you let this law go? Now we're going to have people sleeping out in front of our yard in a Winnebago throwing their crap in our yard. And he believes that. And I say, I think you need to send guys like you or somebody out here and talk and see if that's really going on.
Mayor Faulconer says he has received hundreds of complaints regarding trash, drug use, and public urination. We asked the mayor if there was any direct evidence of people doing this. I mean, do you have evidence that these people are?
Yeah, you've seen the significant concerns from so many areas all over the city. You've seen some of that behavior and then what was happening in terms of trash and other things.
The new lot isn't just a place to park and sleep. Jewish Family Service will have case managers on hand trying to help people get into housing.
Life is a lot easier when you're living in your car. You don't have to worry about rent. You don't have to worry about the gas bill. You don't have to worry about cutting the grass or taking out the trash. And so a lot of times people default to what feels easy.
The nonprofit runs 2 other similar overnight parking lots and says many of its clients are experiencing homelessness for the first time.
They know, the moment they pull in that, get me out of my car, this is not where I want to be. But for other individuals, the default, this is easy. Not that it's easy because it's not easy to be sleeping in your car or in your RV, but it'll take some work to get people back into housing. I don't think anyone in our community should be living in a car. It's just, that's not a place to raise a family. That's not where you would want, we wouldn't want our mothers and fathers to grow old living in their car.
The city says the overnight parking lot is set to open in about a month and a half. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The nonprofit operating the lot says it will hold up to 300 vehicles. The city is paying for the space for at least a year. Now on hold, the transfer operations for spent fuel at San Onofre. This after a fuel canister nearly dropped 18 feet last summer. KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser shows us a disposal plan being introduced by Congressman Mike Levin.
I'm here at the San Onofre nuclear generating station where the decommissioning process is currently at a standstill, and there's still no long-term solution for what to do with the spent fuel. But 2 local congressmen who toured the facility today are working on some solutions.
When I return to Washington, I'll be introducing new legislation to ensure the spent fuel here at SONGS receives top priority from the federal government for disposal.
Congressman Mike Levin says he wants to redo how the Department of Energy decides when spent fuel is collected from the country's various nuclear sites. Right now, the oldest sites are first in line. Levin says he wants to give priority to sites that are decommissioning in densely populated areas and are at highest risk for earthquakes. He says that would put San Onofre at the top of the list.
I don't think there is any other site in the United States that has the seismic risk, the population density, and is a decommissioned or decommissioning site. I'm fairly certain that we're the only site quite like it.
But even if Levin's bill were passed, there is no permanent place for the spent fuel to go, and no spent fuel is being collected. Congressman Harley Ruda, who represents the Orange County district just north of San Onofre, says the federal government has failed in its planning by only having one site for storing spent fuel.
We put all of our eggs in one basket on Yucca Mountain. And going forward, we have to identify more than one site to address the issue.
Levin says he plans to propose the bill when he returns to Washington, D.C. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Congressman Levin says the best case scenario is San Onofre would be decommissioned in 10 years. New details are released about the Marine Corps raider who was killed at Camp Pendleton over the weekend. According to KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh, the California native was an 8-year veteran of the Corps.
Staff Sergeant Joshua Braco was 29 years old. Originally from Sacramento, he leaves behind a wife and child. Braco was a critical skills operator with the 1st Marine Raider Battalion, an elite unit stationed at Camp Pendleton. He joined the Marines in 2010. In 2015, he became a raider and deployed with the Marines Special Operator Unit starting in July 2017. Braco was critically injured when his MRZR tactical vehicle that he was driving rolled over during a training exercise Saturday. He was airlifted to Scripps Memorial Hospital in La Jolla, where he died Sunday evening. The Marines say the accident is under investigation. The MRZR looks like a dune buggy. It's only been in wide service in the Marines since 2017. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Thanks, Steve. A big win for students from City Heights. Back in 2017, they pushed San Diego schools to adopt new alternatives for discipline. Now, a lawmaker wants the changes rolled out statewide. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar takes a look at the proposal.
Thank you. Eat, ice, oats, boots, take my time to lands on you.
These 4th and 5th graders are leaders in their school. They're heading up what they're calling restorative justice circles.
DUCK. A lot of people keep a lot of stuff bottled up in their head. That's me. I keep a lot of stuff bottled up in my head. But when we do our circles, they get to the point where we feel comfortable. Eat, ice, oats, oots.
Once a week, these students lead the circles and encourage their classmates to open up about their lives. It's part of a new approach to discipline. Instead of the typical suspensions, expulsions, and detentions, school officials are prioritizing mediation, counseling, and communication.
It's a positive push towards creating a stronger, more positive community on our campus. Stepping away from consequences and helping students feel like they're in a loving community.
Research shows students who were permanently or temporarily kicked out of school are more likely to come in contact with the juvenile criminal justice system. 2 years ago, San Diego Unified School District adopted the practice, and a group of kids from a City Heights-based nonprofit, Mid-City Community Advocacy Network, helped draft a school climate bill of rights.
It is really a very important thing that's happening in our schools.
Now, Assemblywoman Shirley Weber wants to brand the month of September as Restorative Practices in School Awareness Month in California.
How do we bring folks back? How do we help people to come back into society and restore themselves? And that's what it's talking about, restoring yourself in the community. It helps not only the person who's been the victim of a situation, but the perpetrator as well as the community. We don't have people to throw away.
I am brave. I am brave.
These kids at Rowan Elementary School say restorative justice circles have helped them get closer to their classmates.
I am beautiful. You just create stronger bonds with them. And closer, you guys get closer and closer.
And it's helped them be more compassionate, too.
For me, it's taught me a lot of things, like how to, be there for people and how to, because for me, I'm a really talkative person. And for me, it taught me how to take time to listen to other people and be patient with them.
They say they're proud that what started as a City Heights initiative
I am powerful.
is now moving across the state of California.
I am somebody.
Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
The resolution will go to the Assembly floor for a vote before it's finalized. Today, Apple and Qualcomm settled their patent war. The companies were facing off in federal court in San Diego. The dispute focused on technology that enables iPhones to connect to the internet and how Qualcomm charged royalties for its chip technology. The deal requires Apple to pay Qualcomm an undisclosed amount. It also includes a 6-year licensing agreement. Well, spring is here, which means warmer weather and an increase in mosquitoes and the diseases they carry. County officials met today to educate residents on how to protect themselves against mosquito bites and the West Nile virus. West Nile virus remains a public health threat in San Diego and can be deadly. The symptoms include fever, headache, and body rashes. Supervisor Gray Cox says the county is continuously working to lower mosquito populations.
The county continues to work hard to protect everyone from mosquitoes and illnesses. We use helicopters to drop granular larvicide over 48 different waterways across the region where mosquitoes can breed. The larvicide doesn't hurt people or pets, but it kills mosquito larvae and keeps mosquito populations down.
Since 2015, 44 San Diego residents tested positive for West Nile. 6 of them died. San Diego saw some rain in parts of the county today, and it may be the last wet weather we see for a while. Meteorologist Erin Calandra tells us what we can expect.
Well, hopefully you had a nice day today. It is getting a bit gusty out there. A couple of showers. We do have a cold front sweeping across the county. Now, with that, we're seeing some weather alerts for the interior parts of San Diego County. We're under a wind advisory until 9 o'clock tonight. We're going to see winds right around 35 miles per hour, but we could see gusts up to 55 miles per hour. That's going to be mostly for those mountain ranges, but the strongest winds will be found in those passes. So be careful if you're traveling. We will see blowing and drifting dust, and that will create some visibility problems. Both hands on those steering wheels if you're traveling out there tonight. Now, here is our satellite. Yikes, we had some rain moving across the area. Really just showers in spots, nothing too heavy, and that's because of a cold front that is just sweeping right through the southwest. Behind that, temperatures are going to drop just a little. So tonight we're at 56 degrees. You'll notice a couple of clouds around, but it is drying out. Oceanside at 45, El Cajon at 51, and Borrego Springs at 56 degrees. Tomorrow we are drier and warmer. Look at the jet stream. We have a big ridge here that's allowing some pretty nice conditions here for much of Southern California. The temperatures, well, in Ramona, 75, San Diego at 70 degrees. It is a little bit cool, but we can handle it. In Mount Laguna, 60 degrees with mostly sunny skies. It's going to become beautiful by the end of the week. High pressure building, that big ridge on top of us. It's going to be very pleasant, as usual, I could say. So along the coast, our temperatures are getting up to the 70s for Friday, through Friday, I should say, and then for the weekend, a couple of clouds around. It's going to be in the upper 60s. Inland, we're going to get up to the 80s Thursday and Friday, and then a bit cooler for the weekend with some sunshine. In the deserts, it's going to be pretty hot. We're talking in the 90s Thursday and Friday. Make sure you're drinking that water if you're outdoors. And in the mountains, staying pretty cool. We're going to be in the 60s each day with mostly sunny skies. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
Governor Gavin Newsom is celebrating his first 100 days in office. So far, he's focused on immigration, affordable housing, and he suspended the death penalty. In an interview with Capitol Public Radio, the governor reflects on his time so far and what else he hopes to accomplish.
I think at the end of the day, the first 100 days have been shaped by two things. One is California is the most un-Trump state. And the fact that we're now in 47, 48 lawsuits with the Trump administration, it's not what we chose, but we've stood tall and we pushed back against Trump and Trumpism, protecting our health care framework, protecting our diversity and advancing a different narrative around immigration. Our budget is very much in contrast to an administration that's running close to $1 trillion deficits. We'll be paying down all of our debt. And I think that obviously has marked disproportionate amount of time and energy as it relates to the work we've done. I spent 2+ years on the campaign trail saying I was going to vigorously address the issue of housing and homelessness and address the issues of preschool and education, environmental stewardship. And I think we've at least made down payments on all those things. And had I not done that, I think the critique would have been, well, wait, you came in and promised all of these things, and now you've abandoned them to do just one or two things. So I don't know if that's a mistake, but I sort of reflect on that as sometimes things getting lost in the message, that sometimes things take shape that get a lot of attention, other things that are worthy of, I think, public attention often are overlooked. And from a communications perspective, perhaps that's a significant reflection. We need to pay down pension obligations. We need to pay off all of our debt. I want to pay off 100% of our debt. I want to begin to aggressively pay out pension obligations where there's a huge return on that investment. A historic rainy day reserve, because I want to make sure we're ready for an economic downturn. I want to be wise and thoughtful about one-time surpluses being used for one-time investments, and there's a distinction there. We put together, I think, a very thoughtful budget that was fairly well received by all sides of the political aisle. I was pleased that more conservative-minded people thought there were aspects that made sense. More progressively-minded people like the investments in preschool and keeping the costs of education, higher education, flat by investments in higher education and child care programs, obviously health care, expanding not just the opportunities as it relates to the ACA, but reimbursement rates for more early childhood screenings and the like. So I think you'll see that reflected in the May revise and that same kind of discipline, but same kind of progressive framework of investment. I think the budget is well equipped to address, but I think if you start adding all these other things, these ongoing expenses, using one-time money, you're going to end up back to where we were. And with all due respect, I'm not willing to go back to the bad old days of budgeting. I like what Governor Brown did and the new approach to budgeting. We want to build on that. But it's a humbling place to be. Governor of California, it's a challenging place to be in this moment, being governor of the most un-Trump state in America at a time when you have a presidential election coming sooner than some think, and Speaker Pelosi in your backyard, and an ascendant candidate, and Kamala Harris, and Oversight Committee Chair, and Adam Schiff. California is front and center in the national debate and discourse, and I think one of the points I'm very proud of is California is holding its own. And we're substituting, I think, for leadership at a time when we have a president who's abdicated leadership. He's going in a completely different direction in the state. And to the extent we can keep the ACA together, we can continue to protect and promote our credible diversity. If we can do more on budgeting to sort of send a message that there is a way to be progressive without being profligate, I think all the better for California.
And to see more of that interview, visit kpbs.org. Self-driving cars are now up and running in Sacramento. State officials announced an agreement with Phantom Auto to begin testing remote control vehicles. Lawmakers say the testing is an important first step in expanding driverless cars in California and ultimately reducing traffic deaths.
It's not a certainty today. This is the testing phase. The DMV, frankly, is doing, I think, a good job at this issue, making sure that we have all the answers before we greenlight this industry. But I think we're testing it out here in Sacramento, and I'm confident in the process.
Phantom Auto kicked off the change by offering rides around the Sacramento State campus.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, amid the ashes, we're in Paris in the wake of the devastating fire that engulfed the Notre Dame Cathedral. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
When you think about the early punk, hip-hop, or skate scene, you may think about Hollywood, London, or even New York. But San Diego had its very own underground culture, and the San Diego History Center is celebrating that culture with a brand new exhibit. And to tell us more about it is curator Katie Johnson.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Tell us about this new exhibit and how it all came about.
Well, This most recent exhibit is I'm Not Like You, Notes from the San Diego Underground, and it really celebrates the unique facets of skate, hip hop, and punk subcultures in San Diego from the late 1970s to the early 1990s.
Can you talk about, the early signs that there was an emerging punk scene here in San Diego?
It really kind of started in the mid-1970s. I think one of the earliest bands, some people claim it's one of the earliest punk bands in California, is called the Zeros. They're from Chula Vista here in San Diego County. So that was like kind of when things really started germinating in terms of the punk scene in San Diego, and they just took off from there.
What's the punk scene really all about?
It's a lot of it has to do with kind of outside the mainstream stance, kind of a form of resistance. It's many, many things, and also kind of a DIY ethos or sensibility. A lot of people came up and just learned how to do things themselves and created this really strong scene that has, resonates still today. Punk was very important.
And it seems like punk music and punk culture has an element of anti-establishment. Mm-hmm. San Diego has a reputation of being a conservative town. How did that jive in San Diego? Any pushback?
The pushback mostly, it wasn't so much from the military. There was a lot of friction between punks and the police back in the day. So there was a lot of, when they'd have shows, the police would show up and the show would end. So there was a lot of kind of cat and mouse game with the police in terms of the punk scene.
And where was the punk scene in San Diego?
It was all over the place, but it was really, a lot of it was concentrated downtown. There were a lot of punks who lived downtown, and the punk and art scenes were very much kind of dovetailed. That's a really important thing to note. A lot of it happened downtown, and then a lot of the shows took place at halls and different venues like that were not big concert. This is pre-Casbah.
So you can understand the connection between the early punk scene and the early hip-hop scene, but can you talk about what links all three? Because you also have included the skate scene as well.
Right. Skate, because I think that they all, at the very core, skate, hip-hop, and punk all have creativity at their core, and kind of a form of resistance, and this DIY sensibility. They all share this. So a lot of them are centered around music as a creative form, art as a creative form. Behind us right here we have a piece that we commissioned by a graffiti writer named Escape. So I think that they all intersect in that way. And they all kind of emerged and thrived, especially during the late 1970s to the early 1990s, during the 1980s.
How would the San Diego punk scene and the San Diego hip-hop scene fit into the larger scenes as a whole happening across the country?
It's interesting, and I think in terms of hip-hop, especially with graffiti writers, there were a lot of men in the military who were stationed here in San Diego from elsewhere, especially the East Coast. They would come and teach some of the graffiti writers how to write in an East Coast style. So I think that it was a highly localized scene, but it also had connections to the outside by people who were, by outside influences and kind of these people, sharing what they were doing and what they knew.
Talk a little bit more about that. It sounds as if this exhibit has come together from individuals telling about their personal experiences, being involved in these underground cultures here in San Diego. Can you talk about where the photos come from and how it all comes together?
Yes, the content of the show is completely sourced from the collections and the histories and the stories of the people who were part of these scenes, 100%. So all the people who have given me these things to use they're the subject matter experts. So I'm trying to tell their stories through their perspectives and through the objects that they have and the memories that they have.
In the museums and art centers here in Balboa Park, you see oftentimes fine art being celebrated. Why celebrate underground culture?
Because it's an important history. These are important histories that have not really been told. And at the San Diego History Center, that's what we're interested in doing, is telling the story of communities that have not had the chance to represent themselves and to do it through their perspective. So we are telling their story.
So, Katie, for people who are really excited about this exhibition, tell us the details about when it's going to open and how people can see it.
Sure. The exhibition opens this Saturday, April 20th, at 6 to 8 p.m. here at the History Center. History Center members are complimentary, and everybody else is $5. There'll be a cash bar and light refreshments. And we have a hip-hop and punk playlist made by people who are part of the punk and hip-hop scenes that'll be playing throughout. And it'll be a lot of fun. It's going to be a celebration, and I can't wait to see these members of these three communities coming together and having fun.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Everybody bounce, step on the ball, step on the down, stepping up to my skills, spit up a little.
Now for a recap of today's top stories. The mayor announced the expansion of the Safe Parking Program. The program is meant to keep people safe while sleeping in their cars overnight. A third lot was added across the street from the Mission Valley Stadium and for the first time will allow recreational vehicles. Congressman Mike Levin is proposing disposal solutions for waste at the San Onofre power plant. He toured the site today and is suggesting prioritizing the spent fuel by population density and earthquake hazard risk. Levin will introduce the bill once he's back in D.C. And San Diego County is entering mosquito season. Officials warn about the threat of West Nile virus, which has been found in mosquitoes here. The county urges residents to take proper precautions to eliminate mosquitoes from homes and protect against bites with repellent. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.